first career guys like you that are extremely successful and almost, I mean, it sounds like you're almost financially independent. You have the unbelievable ability right now to just decide what path you want to take. Do you want to start a new business? Do you want to go back to college? Do you want to retire? Do you want to just sit on the beach for the rest of your life? And you're choosing, you and your guy in Chicago are choosing to work and to be a W-2 employee as a pilot because the job is so much fun.
Hello, aviators. Welcome back to the Pro-Pilot Playbook podcast, where we bring you the tips, tricks, hacks, and shortcuts to get you into the cockpit of that airliner faster and cheaper. I'm Sean Ritchie.
And I'm Mike Martin.
And
we've got a great guest today. This is our first YouTube collaboration. We've got another YouTube superstar, more famous than us, that we've invited onto our show. So welcome, Flying with Trent.
Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to have you here, and I think YouTube superstar might be a slight overstatement.
Well, we've been watching your channel, and there's a lot of overlap in our content. You have a Learn to Fly channel, and we're going to direct all our viewers to check it out. It's fantastic. And we want to talk all about the channel on this and what you're doing and how you're doing it, because there is a lot of differences between the Pro-Pilot Playbook, because you're actually in the trenches right now, coming up as Career 2.0, a pilot. So that's great. And we were talking off camera. One of the cool things about when you have guests from another podcast on your podcast that I like, and I follow a lot of big podcasters, is you actually get to interview them. Normally, they're the ones doing the interviews. Yeah. So, I wanted to start off, if that's possible, by just talking about your background, because it's very interesting. And to me, it's just a little mysterious because we know about your flying and everything, and we know it's your second career, and you were very successful your first career. So I'm interested to hear a little bit about that. So if you have, I think you were born in Canada. Is that right? Correct?
Yeah, I was born in the suburbs of Vancouver, British Columbia. As a kid coming up, I'm a child of the Top Gun era. I remember seeing that at the theater. I remember walking out of the theater, body fully vibrating, thinking, I'm gonna be a fighter pilot. That's all I'm gonna do. And so I was in sales at the time, doing quite well, and I applied to the Canadian military. It was a difficult application process. I actually kind of flunked a little bit the first time, and long story, but I managed to get accepted as a pilot in training my second time around, and was on the path to becoming a pilot in the Canadian military. I only really wanted to be a fighter pilot, and budget cutbacks came along and unfortunately put that to an end. And so back then, this is in the 90s, there was I had no money to go and pay for the flight training to become an airline pilot. And B, there was no money to be earned as an airline pilot back then for the first, it was going to be 10 years of ramen noodles. Sure. And I was already making more money than most of my friends' dads were, because I was a good sales guy. And so I just kind of tossed the whole aviation thing over my shoulder and went into business and transitioned from being a sales guy to starting my own companies. And
hold on, what were you selling then?
So the first thing I ever sold was office equipment, photocopiers, basically.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so this is back in the 1991. And I was making $5,000 to $8,000 a month back then, which
holy cow!
That's a lot of money
for a 21-year-old kid. It was pretty good coin.
Yeah. Holy cow! So after that, then did you go into business for yourself?
I did. So after the whole kind of like, okay, I'm not going to go be a pilot, because that was no longer available to me. I wanted something a little bit more long term than selling photocopiers. So I went into the financial services space, where I became a financial advisor, which, for people who aren't familiar with that business, you're basically a sales guy, because your job, you have to go out and get your own clients. And so I developed my very first system, which is called the paperclip strategy on the internet now. I kind of got a little famous. There's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and I'm in chapter 16 of that book.
I've read that book.
Because
You're okay. Huh.
yeah, so you probably all I did, I had to make all these cold calls, which I didn't really like doing. And so I would move a paperclip from one baby food jar to the next one. And I would start off with like 120 paper clips in the full jar. And I would just keep on dialing the phone until I'd move them all to the second jar. And that one habit allowed me to be the rock star of my class of people who were all hired at the same time as me. And, most of them were midlife. They had Rolodexes of contacts and so forth. And so once their Rolodexes of contacts sort of ran out, they didn't know how to prospect or make cold calls. And I did. And so it worked really, really well for me. And I went on to make, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in my 20s back in the 90s, which is, I don't know, what's that, like 400 grand a year today, if you account for inflation. So life
Wow.
was pretty good, to be honest with you. And I used that money to then start my first company. And then I built that company and I sold it. And then I started another one and I started another one. And
So
some of
what
them
were
were
these
more
companies?
successful than others.
What kind of businesses did you start?
So the very first one was an IT services business. Well, I mean, the very first one was I was mowing lawns as a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd take my little mower around and I'd mow whoever would pay me to mow their lawn. But anyway, the first real business was a technology services company. It's actually still in business to this day, but I'm no longer an owner of it. After that, I sold that in 2008 and I retired for a while, a year or two. And that's when I discovered the internet. And so I started being an Amazon affiliate. And then I started my Bright Ideas podcast, which I did for 10 years. And then that led me to owning a marketing agency. And then ultimately, you'll notice there's a few Inc. 5000 awards on the wall behind me. That was for a business that I started where we partnered with manufacturers and handled their Amazon sales channel, sold that business. And out of that business, I ended up starting a software company. And I'm totally skimming the high level because I know that
Oh
this
yeah.
interview isn't really what
Sure.
this is about. But that software company is workflow and process management software. And that I still own it and it's profitable, but that the struggles that I had with the software business are ultimately what led me to decide, screw this entrepreneur thing. I'm going to go be a pilot now and have a cushy, easy job. So we can sort of dive as far down that rabbit hole as you want, if you'd like.
That was actually one of my questions. What was the thing? Was there a straw that broke the camel's back that made you say, you know what, this is and why the pilot thing? Where did that come from for you? I mean,
Sure.
besides the Top Gun, and I'm a 86 when Top Gun came out, I had that same feeling when I walked out of that movie theater. I mean, there was
Yeah.
no question. My path was illuminated with clarity. I was going
Yeah.
to be a fighter pilot.
Yes.
Everybody in our generation, I think Top Gun influenced so many of us to become pilots.
Oh man. Yeah, Sean, there's a video on our feed you should check out that Sean was in San Diego on a trip and he went to all the Top Gun locations and filmed.
Yeah, I
Even-
conned the girl at the hotel into let me into the banquet room where they shot the bar scene and
Yeah.
all this stuff.
Wow.
Actually, check this out. Where's it at? There's my wife moved it. She was in here cleaning. I have a piece, the tree where Tom Cruise and Kelly McGillis have their little spat on the roadside. I
Yeah.
have a piece of bark from all the other trees on the street have been replaced, and some clever city planner guy or something left that one tree there. It's way older than every other tree. I pulled a piece of bark off of it, and
Beautiful.
I had it on my shelf somewhere. My wife was in here. Who knows? Hopefully she didn't throw it away.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so why? I mean, you got all this stuff going on. How'd the pilot thing come back into your life?
Yeah. So life as an entrepreneur for me was always up and down, up and down. I had some really monstrous successes where I made quite a bit of money, and then I'd have other times where it just wasn't working for whatever reason, and so I'd go a year or two without really much income, but because I'd made so much money in the years before, I had enough on the balance sheet and so forth. And the software business was one that, in hindsight, I went into with too naive, because the thing with so in our first 2 years of the software business, and the software is called Flowster.app.
Okay.
First 2 years of that business were just cash. I mean, it printed money because we had one key affiliate that would send us a lot of customers, and of course we would pay them to send us those customers. And at some point, the money was so good and their integrity was so bad that they basically ripped off my product and started not sending us customers anymore, because they decided, well, maybe if we just stole Trent's product, we could keep all the money. And that's exactly what they did.
What did the software do, basically?
So it's the software. They weren't able to steal the software. So initially, when I launched that business, we were selling a playbook for how to be really successful as an Amazon reseller. Remember, I got those 2,000 words behind me, because we sold, well over $10 million on Amazon in the space of a couple of years. And I had delegated myself right out of the business. I was great. I mean, I was making lots of money and not having to go to work every day. There was a lot of other people who are like, man, I want some of that. And so we had this playbook that was comprised of checklists that live in the software company that I now own, that allowed people to essentially replicate my success if they followed the checklists. So what these other friendly people did was copy all my checklists and put them in some other piece of software, and then started selling that to their audience, as opposed to selling my stuff to their audience.
Oh, that's a hit, man.
Oh, yeah. That one cost me a couple $1 million. So that was painful. So then we went into a period of time, the next 2 years after that, so we went from dominating a niche and really having our own space with no competitors to now being out of that niche. And there was factors around the Amazon platform that sort of end of lifed that product anyway.
I got you.
Now we were in a red ocean of endless competitors whose software did more or less the same stuff as ours, and they'd raised tens of millions to as much as $500 million from venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, and we hadn't raised a dime. So now we're trying to fight the good fight, but we've got no money relative to what they've got. So it'd be kind of like trying to beat a P-51 Mustang in a Kit Fox. It's not exactly a fair race.
No.
So after 2 years of that, we scaled back on the overhead and really just turned it to a cash flow machine. So I still get paid reasonably well. I don't do anything, but it's not growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. So in the beginning of 2023,
that sounds like Tony Robbins, by the way. But
yeah,
that's a Tony Robbins.
In the beginning of 2023, I may have read a couple of his books in the day. In the beginning of 2023, I started an offline waste management business here in Boise, because I was done with unlimited global competition. I was like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to have one competitor or two competitors in a market, and I'll just use my face-to-face sales skills and we'll win. So at the time that we bought our truck, there was one competitor that had a monopoly here in Boise for years, and they were, fat, dumb, and happy. We came along and started very quickly stealing accounts from them, which they were very unimpressed with. And so they immediately started a price war. And when that happened, that was during spring break of this year. I was in San Diego with my wife and kiddo. We were on the beach, and my driver / sales guy had texted me to tell me that one of the accounts that we just landed with this major construction company, a week later, it was gone. And I was like, I looked at my wife, I go, yeah, we're out. I'm done. I'm not doing a price war. I've been on Amazon for years. I know what price wars do. If this guy wants to have a price war, then he can have the whole pie, because I'm just not doing it. And that, had I not been through 2 years of battling it out in the software space and already feeling fatigued from that, maybe I would have wanted to put up a better fight. But I was just like, no, I'm out. I'm done. And she says to me, well, what are you going to do? And I said, for the first time in my life, I have no idea. I don't have the foggiest idea what I want to do. All I know is it needs to stop sucking. And she goes, well, why don't you do something that's fun every day? When I go, well, the only thing I can think of that'd be fun every day is flying an airplane. She goes, well, why don't you go do that? I said, great. And off I went.
That is awesome. What a story. Holy cow.
Yeah.
And you could have took 2 hours explaining all that.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to go fast out of respect for
no, that was a great
40,000
foot overflight. But that Amazon stuff though, I mean, when it first came out, I mean, it was like the good old fashioned gold rush, wild west. I got into it, but I got into it like 8 years too late. I had 22 SKUs, and I had a competitor pretty much knock out one of my biggest brands. It took out, you know, almost half my SKUs, and it was it's so volatile. You're at the helm. I mean, I was importing stuff from China and selling it on Amazon is what I was doing. Sounds like you were way more involved in it than I was, but I mean, it's just so easy to be knocked out because, you know, Daddy Amazon is, you know, there to flip the switch if they don't like something.
And that's pretty much what I meant when I said the ecosystem around the Amazon platform has significantly changed. That has a large part of it. But between actually selling, you know, north of 10 million stuff on Amazon and then selling millions of dollars worth of a digital playbook, and then the money that we made on the real estate that we bought with the money that we made from Amazon and the playbook, I mean, I made millions of dollars over a couple of year period from doing that. It was a very, very good period of time. But like I say, ups and downs. And then I went into 2 years of like no paycheck because the software company wasn't growing and wasn't big enough to provide me with a paycheck. And we were just living on our savings, and that gets old pretty quickly. So after 2 years of that, I was like, this got to change.
Gotcha.
So you decide to do the pilot thing. And I mean, are you in Canada at this point?
No, I've been in the States now for 12 years, I think. I got here in fall of 08, whatever that math is.
Gotcha.
And that's to Boise? Is that where you
originally? No, originally it was San Diego. I lived in San Diego for 5 years. I've been to many of the Top Gun locations.
You did the same thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
That's awesome. So yeah, I mean, I see the attraction to San Diego. So when did you move to Boise?
About 10 years ago. We came through here. So back then, didn't really have a whole lot of money. Obviously, a lot of good stuff happened in the last 10 years. And we were living in North Park at the time. And when I met my wife and we got engaged and married, and we came through here on our honeymoon. And I like to invest in real estate, and I hadn't been, you know, super active in it. I owned houses, of course, but when we got here 10 years ago, my joke was when you move to Idaho, you get a free house. Like it was so
cheap,
unbelievably cheap that like a quarter of what a home costs in Vancouver, British Columbia. And so I just looked at her. I said, we need to move here and buy as much of this stuff as we can. And so we did. And, you know, now Boise is not cheap. Now Boise is crazy expensive because everybody and their dog moved here. But nonetheless, we were able to, you know, ride that wave and get paid pretty well for it.
Nice.
I wish it wouldn't have happened, to be honest with you. I wish I could have bought a lot more houses if the prices hadn't have gone up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So the whole pilot, to circle back and kind of answer your question, the whole pilot thing was, okay, I've spent my life doing startups, which is a lot of energy and time.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I made more money investing in real estate than I ever really did, you know, doing startups. So how can I make it so that I can have more free time in my schedule to invest in real estate, but still have a steady paycheck while I'm getting better at, you know, buying more real estate and building my portfolio? And that's how the pilot thing was like, well, great. A pilot, if you live in base and you're a line holder, it's kind of a part-time job. And then you've got another, you know, day, 2 days a week, or every time you're back home to go put your real estate investor hat on, and either flip houses or buy commercial buildings. We bought a commercial building a couple of years ago and flipped it and made a killing, or maybe buy some apartment buildings, or I invest in mobile home parks. You know, there's a lot of stuff you can do in real estate. And I just wanted to take the whole stress of like my paycheck and put that on autopilot, call it autopilot. I didn't realize I was even making a bad joke there. and then use the extra time and the money to buy real estate.
Wow. Gotcha. Wow, man, there's a ton of overlaps in my career and your career, except for the millions of dollars apart that you made early on. I didn't,
yeah.
But the real estate and the free time of flying, man, that is incredible. One important thing I want to bring up, and I wanted to bring this up, and after you tell your story, it's going to be even more resonating with our viewers. But I watched a video that you had where you're interviewing a former CEO that's now a contract pilot on Citation in Chicago. You know,
yeah, Dave Hildish.
Yeah, great video. but if you watch that video and then you listen to what you just said, I think my important takeaway for you or for the viewers, based on your story and your friend's story there, the contract pilot, and then what Sean and I have heard time and time again is, here we have these first career guys like you that are extremely successful and almost, I mean, it sounds like you're almost financially independent. You have the unbelievable ability right now to just decide what path you want to take. Do you want to start a new business? Do you want to go back to college? Do you want to retire? Do you want to just sit on the beach for the rest of your life? And you're choosing, you and your guy in Chicago are choosing to work and to be a W-2 employee as a pilot because the job is so much fun. And I don't mean to dumb it down like that, but that is when you really sink into that is really, it should be really inspiring for a young guy or an old guy, a second career guy, but a young guy that is trying to decide what he wants to do with his life. And you had to create all those companies and make all that money to get to where you're at now, and they could just start now from day one and jump into.
It's just that's a huge part of what Mike and I do. These kids that are graduating high school, so many of them, like, what are you going to do now? You college? You got what? I don't know. Like, well, have you looked at becoming a pilot? I mean, there's never been a better time since the Wright brothers first flew to become a professional pilot right now. And that's a great point, Mike.
Yeah.
Something I would add to that is, I've never been a particularly patient guy, which is why I did startups and did my own businesses, because you can go at your own speed depending on how hard you work, how smart you are, and how lucky you are. For the first time with pilot, I was like, what can I do that will continually pay me more and get easier as the years go by? And what if I never had any other assets at all? What could give me an income, a nice income for the next 2 decades, that if everything else went away, I still don't have to work part-time. The job's kind of fun, and I can still make 6 figures. What am I describing? Pilot. Whether it be airline pilot, which obviously I have to retire at 65, but after that, I'm not going to stop flying. I'm going to go be a corporate pilot, and I'll fly as much or as little as I want, because I'll have a gazillion turbine hours of PIC time at that point. So I'll be able to cherry pick whatever job I want to have. And that was a lot of the thinking of it as well, because that's a very, very different picture than the vast majority of my life. The vast majority of my life, of course, was, being a startup founder and working crazy hours and taking huge risks and so forth.
Mm-hmm. So when you got back into it, you already had, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your story was you already had, it's somewhere early on in your life, you obtained your private certificate, correct? And then, so when you finally decided to jump in with both feet, I'm going to do this professionally, were you already aware of, did you do any research to find out, because I've heard you use the term accelerated training. I didn't know. I was just curious how you went about, because that is like a huge, like one of your biggest videos.
Yeah.
Of how you did everything so quickly.
Yeah, it was the master plan from the beginning, because I knew that to start at 53, it's not like I could take 4 years to get there.
Right.
I needed to get there. So a buddy of mine who's now a first officer with SkyWest, who's just a little bit younger than me, maybe 2 or 3 years younger than me, was a multiple time business owner like me. He did the thing ahead of me, and I was like, oh, cool. I like what Dave's doing. And so when it came time to going to flight school, I knew it was going to be a full-time venture, because that's the fastest way to do it, is just fly more often. Mm-hmm. And then he recommended me a school that he'd been to, because they offer accelerated CFI and accelerated multi-engine programs. It's kind of their specialty. And so I went there, and after that, it was all on me, because it was a Part 61 school. So there was nobody telling me, hey, you need to fly X number of times per week. There was nobody telling me that, hey, you need to study ground school X hours per week. Mm-hmm. I went there. I lived in my fifth wheel. For the first month, I left my family behind because my daughter wasn't done school yet. And I basically did nothing but fly, or study flying or put my simulator virtual reality headset on and fly. Like it was all day, every day.
Sounds
for
awesome.
91 days, with the exception of one day off to go visit my wife's family in Indiana.
Gotcha.
Did you enjoy every minute of it too?
For the most part, yes, but I was taking so many freaking check rides that, especially in the end, in the last 2 weeks, I got 4 check rides and 4 ratings in 2 weeks. I was a stress ball, to say the least. Every check ride had me on pins and needles. Every check ride, I got nervous, stupid in the oral exam, but
yeah,
I was prepared. So every time I was able to get through, and I did a little better in the cockpit, but I'd still get really crazy nervous in the cockpit.
Yeah.
But I
Well, you know what? I think you're supposed to go into a check ride a little nervous. You know, I mean, the guys that ride motorcycles all the time, and you know, once you stop being scared of that machine, that's when it bites you. You know, if you walked in there all cocky, you know, that's when you're going to screw it up.
Yeah, no, I'm cocky was when I was in my 20s. Now,
right. So fast forward to now. You're we don't want to make this too long, but you're flight instructing now. You're 400 hours ish somewhere in there.
600.
600.
Man.
Okay. All right, gotcha.
He's moving fast, man.
Yeah. I got to 400 from one of your videos at some point, and I guess that was a while ago.
Yeah, I graduated flight school on August 6th. I took 2 weeks off just because I needed to decompress, and then I started, getting students from my YouTube channel. And from August, call it 20th to the middle of November, I went from like 260 hours up to 500 hours and change. I mean, I fly before we hit winter here, I was doing 30 hours a week of loggable hours weekend.
Man, you aren't messing around.
Yeah, nice. I was a freaking machine.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm flying like 30 hours a quarter. Wow. We'll talk about, let's get into the Flying with Trent thing, because that's what our viewers, they're going to want to check out your channel and everything. So talk about how you decided to do the YouTube channel. Sounds like you had with your old podcasts and everything, you had experience doing that, and how that all came about and where you're going with it. Yeah.
So I've been a content creator for over a decade, between the podcasts, the episodes that are not on YouTube, and all the videos that I put on YouTube. It's probably over 1,000, and never mind the blog posts. It's probably over 1,000 pieces of content that were either audio or video, plus hundreds of blog posts. So lots of content creation. So when I started doing the flying thing, I thought, on a lark, I'll put up this video that is 53 too old to become an airline pilot, and we'll see if it gets any views. And if it doesn't, then I won't even bother with it. But if it does, then maybe I'll make another one. And it did. It didn't go crazy, but I think I got 6,000-7,000 views in the first 2 weeks ish, something like that. And I was like, well, that's pretty good. I've been on YouTube for a long time, and while I've had a small handful of videos that got more views than that, most of my videos got hundreds of views, not thousands of views.
Right. Yeah.
So then, again, thanks to my marketing background and a lot of copywriting and understanding psychological triggers, I decided the title of my next video was going to be my 18-month plan to make 6 figures as an airline pilot starting at age 53.
Sure.
So there's a bold claim. I'm speaking specifically to fellow marketers. They'll understand what I'm talking about. There's a bold claim, and there's controversy, because half of the people would feel a compelling need to leave a comment and tell me what an idiot I was. And the other half of the people would feel a compelling need to cheer me on. You need to have controversy in your videos to get engagement, and engagement leads to the algorithm showing your video to more people. So the title of that was not an accident. I did a lot of thinking and AI testing and a bunch of stuff.
Sure.
And that video went bonkers. 100,000 views in like maybe 10 days, to the point where there was people showing up at my flight school and enrolling because of me. I was getting recognized on the ramp as I was getting out of the airplane, and the next student was getting in, and this guy freaked out. Oh my God, you're Fly with Trent. And he started selfieing, texting his kid. Like I walk to the airport to catch a flight, and the valet guy would like yell, "Hey, Fly with Trent, I love your bit." Like it went nuts.
Nice.
And so I'd never had any type of success like that on YouTube before. And so I was like, well, let's keep riding this and see where it goes.
That's awesome. Awesome. Yeah,
So,
it's really a lot of fun. I mean, we're having fun doing this. I'm sure you're enjoying
Yeah.
making the videos there.
so what's next for you? Are you planning airlines or corporate?
Before you answer this question,
Oh,
I got
okay.
it. No. It's like I'm watching this, and I've watched some of your videos, and it does seem like you're. I'm just gonna guess. It does seem like you're leaning towards the airlines, but then when I hear you talk, I'm like, and as interviewer of many corporate pilots, I'm like, man, this guy is a shoe-in for corporate. Man, he's a very professional. He understands business. I'm like, this is the guy. I'm like, this guy's gonna be running a huge flight department or flying for some billionaire
That
with
is a good
five
point.
Gulfstreams.
Right. As an
Yeah.
airline pilot, you don't have to have those skills. As an airline pilot, all you got to
No.
do, the only skill you have is have your butt in the seat at whatever time it says on your schedule. As a corporate
Yeah.
pilot, you got to do that and be able to deal with these guys that are worth $500 million and take care of their multi-million-dollar machines. You're the one guy that does everything. And yeah, I agree, Mike. Yeah, he would be a shoe-in for corporate.
But we'll let you talk.
So obviously I get asked that a lot. I think about that a lot. I have buddies, good buddies, who are like, one of them, he's got that job. He's got the billionaire owner. He gets paid somewhere between 250 and 300 grand a year. He works a week, a month. So he's got like the cush job. He flies around in a 280 and they treat him like gold. But the thing with corporate, and I've talked to enough airline veterans to know this, because thanks to the channel, I get to talk to all sorts of people. So I have like this crazy network of people that I've been able to have these conversations and get free advice from. Corporate is, to quote one guy, he said 95% of corporate jobs are complete shit because you are on call all the time. You have no job security. And if whatever corporate, maybe they make beer or whatever they make, if that falls on hard times, the jet's one of the first things to go. And when the jet goes, so do you. And you don't have any seniority. So remember what I said earlier on about I got into this because I wanted a steady, reliable, easy job that will allow me to have the free time to go make buckets of money in real estate.
Yeah.
I don't need to have I'm not saying I don't want. I'm saying I don't need to have the $300,000 a year corporate job with all those days off like my buddy has. By the way, it took him 20 years to get that job.
Right.
And I'm not sure. I don't know enough about this space to know how many opportunities like that are going to come my way. If a great opportunity comes my way, would I look at it? Sure, of course. I'd be a fool to not do it. But what I know for sure is that the regional that I want to work for has a fantastic reputation for their jet training. I'm going to get 1,000 hours of turbine in my first year. They've never had a furlough. I'm going to get upgraded to captain after that year. At least that's how it is now. And I'm 15 minutes from the base. I got a buddy that's a captain for those guys, and he's like, Trent, my life's pretty good. I make $300,000 a year, and I'm in my own bed more than I'm not. Like, life's pretty good. So I don't have the answer to your question yet as to which way ultimately I will go. My plan is I'm still driving with everything I can to get to 1,500 hours as fast as I can so that I can go and work for that regional airline, subject to whatever other crazy opportunities come my way, which is also one of the reasons why I publish content. Because if you are telling the world about you and what you're doing and you're putting yourself out there, much like my students find me, well, opportunities can come find me as well. Maybe one day, some guy's scrolling on Instagram and he sees one of my videos where I'm flying around in my buddy's Cirrus SR-22 and I'm talking about, whatever. And he's like, I want that guy. I want that guy to train me for my instrument rating, and I'll pay him $30,000 to come here for 3 weeks and do it. Well, maybe I'll do that. And then maybe that guy has a G280 that like, who knows, right? So that's why I'm such a big believer in the power of producing content, because you need to put yourself out there.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a great answer.
Yes, great answer. And your content is amazing.
Thank you.
I love how much time you're putting into the videos, man. They look really good. And
Well, that's my editor.
okay. All right, gotcha.
My editor that makes the videos look good.
Awesome.
Well, Mike and I are doing it. Well, ours aren't as elaborate, obviously, but yeah, they look really good.
Well, so for you and anyone else, because I do love my editor dearly. In the description of any of my YouTube videos is his contact information, and he has a team of folks working over in India that do the editing, and he's very affordable.
Gotcha.
So if you need a better editor,
well, ours is more just, it was mainly Mike and I sitting rapping about whatever subject, and the YouTube portion of it is so you could see our faces. We weren't necessarily going for that.
Oh man.
But
no,
yeah.
that'd be good. Yeah, no, that's great, man. Yeah, no,
Yes.
it's hot stuff, man. So tell the viewers what do you got coming up? What are you working on your channel? What's coming up? Once they subscribe to it.
Yeah, so more videos about just helping a career 2.0 pilot how to navigate their career. Like for example, right now I'm working on a video for Part 121 versus Part 135. Just kind of my take on the differences between the two. There's something I can't announce just yet because it's not a done deal, but that there is something else exciting that I'm working on, which will,
cool.
In the words of one of my students who's an ex-business owner, he goes, "Oh, if you get that," he says, "that's going to make your brand on YouTube." So we'll not say anything more about that yet because I don't want to jinx myself. So there's something pretty cool that I'm hoping to be able to announce and make videos about, and there would be lots of videos made about it. But in the near term, as much helpful content as I can think up to help guys like the three of us who are career, if you're a career 2.0 guy or gal in your midlife and you're thinking, well, how viable is this? What's the smartest way to do it? Interviewing more pilots, producing more content to assist that individual is really what I'm all about.
Awesome.
Yes.
Well, we're happy to have you. This is a wonderful interview,
Yep.
And anything we can do to help or follow up would be great. I think we're gonna film an episode for your channel also, and just a ton of overlap. I feel like if I'm ever in Boise that we could talk for hours. So I'll have to look
I'm
out.
sure we could.
Yeah. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Trent. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here. I never take it lightly when people are gracious enough to have me on their show, and all I can hope is that the audience is still listening and thinking that was a good use of my time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks a lot.